Baylor won. Did it look good enough?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another post-game edition of Locked On Baylor after the Bears go to 2-1 on the year, beat Samford 42-7 in what was one of the football games of all time. It happened. It was there. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on YouTube. Appreciate you guys stopping by. We're going to look at the 5 things we said they needed to do in yesterday's show, how that panned out in the game, whether this looked good enough for you, and what positives and negatives we can take from it. Because honestly, I hate these games, man. I hate them. Because most of the time you don't learn much about your team from a fan standpoint. From a coaching standpoint, I'm sure you can. But you played 2 pretty good opponents to start the year. One of them struggling today in Auburn. You went 1-1. It took a great comeback. You still kind of have some question marks about your team, but you're riding momentum and that it's going really well. And then you beat Samford 42-7. Some of you out there were feeling really good about this team going into this game. And you said, yeah, you know what? I think Baylor will cover 49.5. And you put $20 on it. Hate to be that guy today. But it's one of those where it's yeah, they won by 35 points. But it didn't look all that fantastic. Is there a bunch here? Do I have a laundry list ready to be they did this wrong, and this wrong? No, but the run defense didn't look as good as the stats showed. Samford was under 3 yards a carry. It didn't really feel like that. Baylor scored 1 time in the second half. They punted the ball 4 times. Sawyer Robertson has his first 2 picks of the year. I don't know. Those aren't things you want to be talking about as the takeaways in a Baylor-Samford game. I don't think there was anyone that was really quiet in the first couple of weeks offensively who broke out in this game necessarily. It was just really 10-2, get the car in the garage. That's what it felt like. At worst, you could say the team was kind of going through the motions, just kind of there. But looking at the 5 things I said they needed to do this weekend for me to feel good, let's see how many of those they hit. First one was hold Samford under 14 points. They did that. Okay. Bam. They held them to 7. It sucks that the 1 touchdown they scored was one of the most hilarious looking touchdowns we've ever seen. This Ephus pitch, that I just don't know how Samford is scoring on that. It's like playing beer die. You guys ever play beer die? You're trying to throw it up really high and hit the table. That's what that was. It was just punt into the air on what was actually a halfback pass, and it turns into the only touchdown of the game for Samford. So, good enough. Good enough for sure. Bryson Washington and Caden Knighton going for 75 plus each. Well, no, because I didn't make it 150 yards total. I made it 75 yards each, and they didn't do that on the ground. Caden Knighton did have a couple of plays through the air. He had 28 yards through the air, 36 on the ground. I'm no math major, but that does not add up to 75. Bryson Washington had another Bryson Washington kind of game. 6.5 yards a carry. That's good to see. But 21, toting the rock 21 times for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns. Again, nitpicky. Do I want Bryson Washington carrying it 20 times against Samford? No, I'd rather it be 12. That's just me. It was good to see Michael Turner get some carries. And to be fair, they tried to get Caden Knighton. I mean, he carried the ball 10 times. That is a nice change of pace if you're going to spread across 30 carries between those 2 guys. In a normal game, that's a pretty good split, 21-10. In a game like this, I'd rather it be, 12 and 15, and then Michael Turner gets some more. And Joseph Dodds gets some more. But they did not hit that. That was the second key. Third key, Sawyer Robertson in the street closed by the 4th quarter. Not exactly. I think he played the first drive of that 4th quarter. Am I right in that? He was obviously out after that. The take 3 mentality wanted this defense to force 3 turnovers. They forced 4. Thank you. Good. 3 picks and a fumble. The fumble actually comes at key time. It was 14-7, and Baylor had just turned it over. Sawyer had just thrown a pick, and it looked like Samford was going to go in to possibly tie the game. Bears forced a fumble, and obviously it's never closer than that. The fifth thing was Lewis Brown, the fourth, showing signs of life. And I guess I wasn't specific enough on that, so I got to give it to him. He had 3 catches. He or quadrupled his season output in catches. But again, he had a touchdown, first touchdown as a Bear, but 3 catches on 6 targets for 34 yards. It's like, and he had a drop. He had a bad drop in this game. I'm still waiting for Lewis Brown to break out. And the other thing the honorable mention was wanted to see Walker White, wanted to see what he could do. I think the biggest surprise of the game for me, and I'll get to the comment section in a second, I'm sure some of you are wondering this as well, nothing against Nate Bennett, but very surprised to see Nate Bennett relieving Sawyer Robertson and not Walker White. Is Walker White not your backup? Is he not the next guy in line? I don't know. And I'm sure Dave will answer this in the post-game press conference, and we'll cover it on Monday's show. But I don't know why we didn't see Walker White there. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's an injury that I missed, but was quite surprised to see it as Walker White not coming in and Nate Bennett in to relieve Sawyer Robertson. And Sawyer for himself, I'll say this, probably the worst game he's played all season. Not that's saying very much. I mean, he's been great. 2 picks, not great. And I think he missed some throws. Baylor's really, I tweeted this out from the show account. It's really weird that they've just not been on the money in any of the 3 games this season on those line of scrimmage passes. The little swing passes, the screens. They're just not on it. They drop a lot of those. Sawyer misses some of those. It's bizarre. I think that's weird. And I think as good as this offense has been so far, there's still some things that could be worked on. I think they can still be a more effective team running the ball. And I still think they're really only solid in one facet of one part of the game. And that is passing on offense because you have Sawyer Robertson. Everything else, I think, you'd be, I don't want to say concerned, but at least have some questions about with this team still. But I mean, defense did what they could do. You could only play the team that was ahead of you today, and that was Samford. You held them under 200 yards. That's fine. You forced 4 turnovers. I'll take that. But I think there was a little bit to be desired in this game, and specifically offensively for this Baylor team. Like they could have scored 60 today, and it's not the end of the world. They didn't, but a little bit to be desired. Let's get to the comments. Let's see what we got here. Jeff Ware saying not good enough. Not good enough. And look, to be fair, I know the outlook of the next couple of weeks of the schedule has changed, but you do start conference play next week. Like this was the final tune-up before the defending Big 12 champs are coming into your barn and looking to knock you off, man. Like that's where I'm like, I would have liked to have felt better. And actually, speaking of, bear the truth, I think puts it perfectly in the first part here. Hoping to walk away feeling better about the season, but I don't. Team seems to have a motivation and a confidence problem. Yeah, so that first part, like I would like to feel better about this game today. I would have liked them to cover 4 to 9.5 because I was the dummy who put it down there because I was feeling so good about the Bears this morning. But I just would like to have left this game feeling better. In terms of the confidence and motivation thing, I think that's been a problem with Baylor teams under Dave Aranda this whole time. In fact, I talked about it with Scotty Swingler, name drop, on the Matt Mosley show yesterday, doing the Matt Rule, Dave Aranda debate. And one of the things was Dave Aranda's teams aren't typically ready to play. And I think it's weird to say about this game because they scored 2 touchdowns in the first 5 minutes, but it didn't feel like they were really ready to play 60 minutes against an inferior opponent today. And I'm sure that's the talk around the locker room. As far as a confidence thing, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe, because that could explain why they're not typically ready to play. Yeah, and Jeff provides some perspective here. 11 a.m. kickoff, hot, small crowd, or HOT, Heart of Texas. Maybe that's what he's saying. I get that. But, like, it's not going to be this way because we already know the time. But the Arizona State game could have just as easily been 11 a.m. as it was 7:30 or 7, whatever it is next week. That could have been 11 a.m. And Baylor, we never know if it's going to be a big crowd. Not for sure. And it's going to be hot next week too. Like that's a tough one for me. Like it is, it's perspective, but that's a tough one for me to be like, well, okay, then they shouldn't play that well. So there are definitely conference games that could fit the mold of this game or the way that Jeff is talking about it here. Scotty B, not as sharp offensively. Defense did better today, except for that one drive. Yep. Yep. And he puts it into perspective. Another perspective on this thing. Clemson just lost their second game out of 3. Did win some money on that one on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. So there you go. Did win some money on that Georgia Tech plus 3.5. Billy saying no worries about Sawyer Robertson. Yeah, I wouldn't have any worries either. Like the guy is this is where the gunslinger thing for Sawyer Robertson really comes into play. Like he forced a couple against a bad team, and even a bad college football team can pick off a couple, and that's what they did. No real worries about Sawyer Robertson. Just kind of the cohesiveness of this offense. It looked really good the first 2 weeks, especially last week, and it really didn't feel like it got off the map today. Scotty B saying, good to see Michael Turner getting some carries. I think the same, but bear the truth saying Dodds might be your number 2. Taking Dodds over Caden Knighton right now. I think there's a little bit more from Caden Knighton over the next couple of weeks. But like I don't think he's been perfect, but I don't know if I'm putting Dodds over him right now. Yeah. I don't think I'm going there yet. Bear the Truth does ask a good question about the tight ends. I guess the tight ends. I'll take your word for it. We're not much of a factor in this game. We're not much of a factor really at all. Michael Trigg had 2 catches, and he didn't play a lot of snaps, it looked like. Matthew Klopfenstein got a couple of targets. He did not make a catch. Yeah, really interesting because that is obviously going to be a mismatch for Baylor in most of their conference games, but especially against an FCS team, like you can't match up with good athletic tight ends like Baylor has. Like that should be, you can get some good talent out on cornerback out on the boundary, but chances are you don't have a guy who's going to be able to cover Michael Trigg, and they just really didn't look his way a lot. They didn't really look his way a lot. David talking about Sawyer Robertson and the Heisman, saying the Heisman is almost always one of the last 3 games of the season, not the first 3. It doesn't hurt his chances. I agree with that. You can't lose a Heisman in the first couple of weeks. But I think you can absolutely elevate your name in the conversation. And I think that's what Sawyer did the first 2 weeks of the season. Now he's on people's brains, and they'll play a good team in Arizona State next week. So like he will be on the minds of the Heisman voters and the people looking at that. So yeah, this does nothing for Sawyer Robertson's Heisman campaign. Nothing negative, nothing really even positive either. He's where it's at. It was good to see them force some turnovers today that Steven's talking about in here. Randall with an interesting point. I'd like to hear what you guys think about this. What a BS win, says Randall. No defense. Could the defense have been better? Sure. They also did hold the team to 7 points, Randall. Like there's only 2 better scores you can do than that as a defense. That's 3-0. So I'm not ready to jump off a bridge about this Baylor defense. In that I don't know that it's that much better or worse than what we saw last week. Again, was it great? I'll agree with you, Randall. It did not look great, for sure. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's back on track. But yeah, I wouldn't say no defense entirely, but it wasn't very good. Iron Reaper says this team's the definition of mediocre. I don't know, man. It's going to take a while to see if they're mediocre. You know, I still think there's more questions about this team than we would like to have through 3 games, right? 2 of them against good opponents. You'd like to have more answers than the questions that we have. I don't think that's the harshest thing to say they're mediocre. I think they're better than that because I still believe in the talent on this team. But I said that for basketball all last year and the year before. So, but seeing in the comments here, Taz Williams getting in there is a nice play. Nice to see. Nice to have a bunch of different guys carrying the football out of the backfield. Bear the Truth asked, did Lewis Brown, I'm guessing Lewis Brown the fourth, do anything or enough to make you change your opinion about him? Well, my opinion about him going into the season was echoing what Dave Aranda said, and I thought he was going to be a real threat for this team. And so through 3 games, has my opinion changed? Yeah, it has. I don't know that he's going to be a real threat for this team. I thought this would have been a nice day for him to get, 6 or 7 catches for 80 yards in the first half, and he didn't. So, it's big expectations, but it's a good player against a bad team. So my opinion from before the season to now has definitely changed. It's just not someone that I'm going to factor in much to the Baylor game plan as the games get bigger. Mitchell said, does this offense need to be behind to play well? Maybe, because they were up 14-0 in 5 minutes today, and it wasn't the best performance that they had. But maybe that's it. Maybe they just need to be behind all the time. But anyway, I don't want this to sound too negative, but there's not a ton of positives I'm taking from this one, right? Like they kind of looked like the team we thought they were, and it was a struggle at times in the first half. Only scoring 7 in the entire second half is not the best look for this offense, no matter who is playing quarterback. So, excuse me, a win is a win, but it's got to be sharper, and it starts next week. And maybe they're easing into a conference schedule here with the way Arizona State played last week, with the way Oklahoma State's playing, with the way Kansas State is playing. Good Lord, man, they are off the rails bad at this point. And Houston might be for real, in this conference. I said whoever won that game would be in kind of that second tier, and Houston is in that second tier for beating Colorado, man. They are in that second tier. And Arizona, do we need to start talking about them after the win against Kansas State? We'll see. Want to do one last question on here from Bear the Truth again. Do you think the coaching staff is to blame for any of the shortcomings? If so, what do you think they need to change to improve the season outlook? I'll say this is kind of a general blanket thing for Baylor and for college football more so than the pros. Coaching, it comes down to coaching a lot. And things weren't sharp today. And part of that's going to be on the players, just probably not getting their emotions up for a game like this. But then again, the people paying the money will say it's on the coaches to get them motivated. And I think the constant problem of not being ready for games is a coaching issue. That's a culture issue. That's something that you build inside your locker room. I think what Baylor's doing wrong outside of that is correctable. We saw this offensive line and this run game greatly improve in the middle of last season. So that can improve. You can get better at stopping the run. You can. It's a bit tougher to do than establishing the run, but you can get better at that. And we saw the defense even get better throughout last year. It was never great, so that's why we don't have a ton of confidence in them, but it did get better throughout last year. So yeah, I think these things are correctable, but a lot goes on the coaching staff when you just don't look all that impressive. So yeah, I think it's to blame for some of the shortcomings. Yes. And definitely on the defensive side of the ball, I'm not making excuses for a guy who was a defensive guru, which is a term that we are banning from Locked On Baylor until further notice. When you are this mastermind coming in and you keep firing these coordinators and say, none of you guys are good enough to run my defense, I'll do it myself, and it's still not good enough, then yes, that's on the coach. That is on the coach. But 42-7 felt a little closer than that. Felt a little less impressive than that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. What went wrong in this game? What would you like to see get better? And how are you feeling going in to the Big 12 conference schedule? We'll hear from Dave Aranda on Monday's show, talk a little bit more about this game, and start looking ahead to the defending Big 12 champs coming into McLane next Saturday. So let me know what you thought about the game below. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps out the channel a lot when you do that. So thank you so much. And thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you on Monday back at the regular studio, by the way. I'm a little on the road here on Locked On Baylor.